Senator, is this Neanderthal thinking? Because I'm looking on the states, listing of the states without mask mandates. Missouri's one of them. Do you have archaic thinking?
Yeah, what a uniter Joe Biden is. This is Mr. Unity. And yet, if you disagree with him, you're a Neanderthal. This is a guy who's also called people who disagree with him Nazis. I mean, it's unbelievable. In Missouri, we're kind of used to this because we're always called by the D.C. crowd flyover country. So we've gotten this treatment for years. But the truth is there's nothing wrong with actually following the science and allowing people to make their own decisions. In Missouri, we've had a flexible approach to this from the beginning. I think our governor has done a good job in giving local counties the ability to make their own decisions. But listen, if Joe Biden really wants to do more, why doesn't he focus his COVID relief package on vaccine distribution and actually put the brunt of the package there? Instead, he's spending hundreds of millions of dollars on stuff like abortion providers and environmental justice. That shows you where his priorities
are. It's spending the people's money. 9%, only 9% is going to COVID relief, and it's called the COVID relief package. When you look at all the pork, and I think we have a list of so much stuff that lawmakers have crammed in here.
COVID-y stuff.
Exactly. $1 trillion, though, still has not been spent from past COVID-19 relief bills. So what does that tell you? Does that tell you that this is just an excuse? They want to say it's a COVID relief bill, but it's just an excuse to get what they need for their communities and their big donors?
Yeah, it's exactly right. It's about their left-wing agenda. And actually, the White House has been pretty frank about this. I think they called it the most progressive piece of domestic legislation in a generation. And that's about right. Notice COVID is nowhere in that sentence. I mean, you look at their priorities: funding abortion providers, funding environmental justice, shoveling money to blue states whose revenues are actually up. I mean, it's just pure politics. Meanwhile, what about workers? All of their promises to workers about direct relief, they've scaled those back and scaled those back. So workers are getting less. Vaccine distribution is actually getting less. I mean, not, as you said, less than 9% of the money actually going to medical COVID relief, and all the rest of it to their special interests and to their left-wing agenda. It's crazy.
Yeah. We know a lot of people watching right now, they are looking at that $1.9 trillion and they're thinking, okay, but where's my check? There are a lot of people, Senator, in this country who are hurting bad. And it is great that the federal government can open up our wallet, their wallet, Uncle Sam's wallet, and write them a check to help them through this tough time. The problem Republicans have is with all that other stuff, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, listen, I've supported direct relief to working families for months on end. And in fact, got it in the last COVID relief package back in December that President Trump signed. I thought it should have been even more back then. The president was right about that. He wanted $2,000 payments. That's exactly what it should have been. And so I am all for that. The problem is that the rest of this bill, while they've been scaling back, the Democrats have relief to working families, they've been loading up their other special interest priorities. I mean, $50 million for abortion providers. Why is that in a COVID bill? What does that have to do with COVID? Environmentalist left-wing causes getting millions and millions in this bill. And that's just the stuff we know about. Wait till they read it today.
Sure. And what about $350 billion to states and local governments that shut everything down? Whereas other states like Florida kept things open, they've got a lower unemployment rate. The states that have a high unemployment rate, like New York, where we're sitting, they will benefit from this.
Absolutely, they will. And the thing about it is that many of those blue states that are going to get billions under this bill, their tax revenues are actually up in 2020. I mean, they ended up doing better than they thought that they were going to. And as you say, they've already gotten billions in previous packages. So it is a left-wing giveaway. It is a left-wing social agenda that they're trying to use here. And they're going to do it all without Republican support. I mean, they're not even attempting to get Republican votes in the Senate.
So the good news is they threw out Nancy Pelosi, basically symbolic, threw out Nancy Pelosi's transit system and threw out Chuck Schumer's bridge to Canada. But you have more targeted relief that so-called moderate Democrats are asking for. So that'll be in the bill. I thought it's kind of interesting that Senator Ron Johnson is making somebody read the whole bill out loud. So that's going to delay any passage. It's 600 pages. But let's move on and talk about some of the president's nominees that are getting some turbulence, one of which is a very controversial pick, Xavier Becerra, the Attorney General of California. One of the controversial quotes that I want to share with you that you know about, April 3rd. There are not criminals. They haven't committed a crime. against someone, and they are not acting violently or in a way that's harmful to people. And I would argue they are not harming people indirectly either. If you call them criminals, it's a lot easier to get people to turn against them than if you call them undocumented immigrants. That's how he's going to approach the border. That's how he's going to approach his job if he gets the job at HHS.
Yeah, you know, this is, listen, I mean, illegal border entry in this country is a crime. And what's interesting is when I asked Merrick Garland, the Attorney General nominee, if he supported keeping illegal entry a crime, he wouldn't answer me. Yeah, so you see a pattern here from the Biden administration, which is that they're going to turn a blind eye to what's going on at the border. We already have another crisis building at the border. They know it, by the way, and yet they're doing nothing. So they're going to illegal immigration, doors are going to be open. And Becerra, I mean, this is a guy who has tried to criminalize pro-life advocacy in his own state. I mean, what's his priority been? It's been going after folks who are pro-life. It has been pushing a hard left agenda.
He could get
this
rejected.
Guy who's for
what are his
partial
chances?
birth abortion. He could.
Because the Senate panel is deadlocked.
Yeah, I think he is in trouble, and you know, that's good news because this is a guy with a radical left-wing record. And so I hope that the Senate Democrats take a hard look at this and say, is this really the kind of guy, I mean, a guy who wants to prosecute pro-life advocates, a guy who is in favor of partial birth abortion, wants to use taxpayer money to fund abortions. I mean, again, that's radical.
Well, particularly during a global pandemic, when Joe Biden's #1 priority is getting rid of the pandemic, you would think that they would have somebody from the healthcare world or somebody who is a doctor to head that up. But instead, they've got the former Attorney General. Senator, wanted to ask you about your office is up on the Capitol Hill complex, and the House has canceled today's votes because of worries. And the headline out of the Washington Post is Capitol Police intel shows militia group plotting to take the Capitol today because March 4th historically has been Inauguration Day before the 20th Amendment. What do you know about this threat, and how seriously are people taking it?
You know, I only know what I've read and what I see reported. So I personally haven't been briefed. I'm not aware of any briefing that's been offered to senators at large about this. You know, we're planning to be in session today and to go about our work. And I'll just say that, you know, we've got to, if there are serious threats, then obviously we hope that those will be reported to members and we'll be able to make a decision. But in the meantime, we've got to keep doing the work that we were sent here to do and do it as safely and reasonably as we can.
Do you think that the National Guards, do you still want them there? Michael Waltz was on with us earlier, Congressman Waltz, and he said it's time for them to go home.
Oh, I mean, I think the fact that we've got thousands of National Guardsmen and women, and, you know, I certainly appreciate their service, but the idea that they're just going to be there indefinitely, and that appears to be the plan. You know, we've had these hearings up on the Hill recently about January 6th, and folks have been asking over and over, how long will the Guard be on Capitol Hill? Nobody can get an answer. I mean, it appears to be indefinite. I think the idea of keeping them there indefinitely and keeping a barbed wire fence around the Capitol indefinitely is crazy. I mean, this is the people's house. It should be open to the people. And just to say that, you know, hey, maybe for forever we'll have the massive Guard presence and have it fenced off from the public, I think is the wrong choice.
Senator, what is life like for you now with backlash from Democrats in particular about your would-be speech on January 6th and the unrest that we all know about? Have things settled down for you?
You know, it has been truly, it has been amazing to see the outpouring of support since their efforts to cancel me, to cancel other conservatives, to cancel anybody who won't go along with their radical left agenda. And of course, they lied every which way about my objection on January 6th. They lied about my positions, and it hasn't worked. I mean, that's the great thing. You look at my support in my home state of Missouri. You look at the support we've gotten from around the nation. It's utterly failed and backfired, actually. And I think people want folks who are going to stand up and tell the truth and who, no matter what the criticism is, are going to keep on doing their job. And that's exactly what I'm going to do.
All right. Well, we certainly want everybody safe today as they do their job up on the Capitol Hill complex. Sir, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.